Hi class, in this recording we're going to talk about senescence of the female reproductive system, the loss of function as we age. A lot of senescence occurs at menopause. That's a very abrupt time period for the female reproductive system. At this period of time during menopause, the ovarian follicles are used up. There are no more viable follicles. Gametogenesis, particularly oogenesis, the production of female gametes, ceases, and ovaries stop making sex steroids, because we no longer have the development of the follicle or corpus luteum to support the menstrual cycle. And as this reduction in sex steroids occurs, think of the reduction of estrogen and progesterone, we have many individuals develop vaginal dryness. There's less transducate within the vagina. And that vaginal dryness is going to correspond with an increase in vaginal pain. Something else that I didn't mention on the slide is that the reduction in sex steroids also causes a reduction of the stratified squamous epithelium that lines the vagina. Sometimes that causes it to become thin and extra sensitive, and a lot of times that can be treated with estrogen being applied to the vaginal canal with a topical cream. We also find that there's just general genital atrophy that occurs, the reduction in size of the uterus, reduction in size of the labia majora and labia minora, and the female also experiences reduced overall libido. The reduction in estrogen in particular causes the female to have an elevated risk of osteoporosis, and there's also going to be an elevated risk of atherosclerosis as well. As we look at this menopause, the sensation of menstruation, we should talk about some of the things that go into this process, because it's a big deal. There's a lot to say about it. When we look at a female when she's born, a brand new infant girl, she's born with about 2 million oocytes, or eggs, 2 million primordial follicles within her ovaries. And then when climacteric begins, there's about 1,000 follicles left. And climacteric is the precursor to menopause. This climacteric typically is when a woman's monthly cycle becomes irregular, and when that female's monthly cycle becomes irregular, usually it'll be spotty or irregular for a couple months, maybe a year or two, until the female goes 12 months without a menstrual cycle. Now, during this climacteric event, the follicles are going to be releasing less, or excuse me, will be less responsive to the gonadotropins. So and since they're less responsive, there'll be less estrogen and progesterone. All of the sex organs are going to begin to atrophy. Skin in general becomes thinner, and that's stratified squamous epithelium all over the body. We're also going to have a decline in bone mass, and blood vessels begin to constrict and dilate in response to shifting hormone balances. And this constriction and dilation in response to shifting hormone balances causes the female to experience what is known as a hot flash, or as someone who I thought was a very funny woman, she described it as her own personal summer, when it'd be the middle of winter and she'd be bright red and sweating up a storm. And this sense of heat would spreads from the abdomen to the thorax, neck, and face, and can result in the female feeling very uncomfortable and very warm. As we look at menopause, this is when menstrual cycles have ceased for about a year. And this is a fuzzy definition. And for most women, it occurs between the ages of 45 and 55. And as we look at menopause, this age of menopause has been going up and up. It's been increasing over the last century within the developed nations as we've had better nutrition and better health care. And that's a good thing, because the typical age of giving birth of the first child has been decreasing in developed nations. We're actually looking at a bit of a population bust in upcoming years. Oop, I went too far there. So let's talk fertility. In terms of female fertility, their fertility peaks in their early 20s. So it is the easiest for a female to conceive a child in the early 20s. So for a female who's trying to have in their early 20s, that are trying to have a baby, only 4% of them will not have a baby when they're trying to have a baby. And then at ages 25, we're looking at only 7% of females not being able to conceive when they are trying to conceive. But then look at ages 30 to 35. From ages 30 to 35, we had a 10% jump in the percentage of women who are unable to conceive. And from age 35 to age 40, we have a 23% jump in the percentage of women who are unable to conceive. So generally speaking, at about the age of 35, there's a dramatic decline in female fertility. This dramatic decline in fertility corresponds to this slope here. And usually it starts to bottom out at the ages of 35 to 40. So, and this is, in terms of the y-axis, this is the percentage of NGF population remaining, which you can think of as a rough approximation to overall fertility. So if up here, at the high end of the y-axis, we have most females being highly fertile, and then on the lower end of the y-axis, we have most females being highly infertile or incapable of natural conception. As we look at this figure in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, we can see the percentage of females within a population at different age spans. This line right here is supposed to be 21. I had to look at the source, the primary article, to get that number for you. So as we're looking at this figure, we have most of our fertility for females in their 20s, with a small percentage of females starting in about the mid-20s being subfertile. At the age of 31, approximately 50% of females are at subfertility. By the age of 41, approximately 50% of females are sterile. At the age of 46, approximately 50% of females are having some kind of irregularity to their monthly cycle. And according to the data mined for this particular graph, you can click on the link to go to the source material. By the age of 51, 50% of women have reached menopause. And by the age of 60, we're looking at about 100% of women completely ceasing menstruation or having reached menopause. So this is an example, or hopefully this data gives you a good idea in terms of how females' fertility will alternate or change over the course of the female's lifespan. If somebody is hoping to have a child naturally, it's a good idea to try to do that before the age of 35. But let's talk about some exceptions. These are some jaw-dropping numbers I found here when I was looking up some outliers. So the oldest woman to conceive naturally and give birth was 65 years old at the time of the time that she gave birth. Holy smokes! I am pretty sure I'm going to mispronounce her name. Jinju Qian is a woman from China who was age 65 when she gave birth to a child. And she gave birth via cesarean section, and this happened during October 2019, so less than a year ago. In terms of the oldest woman to conceive with medical assistance and give birth, it is a woman from India. Her name, and she was age 74 at the time that she gave birth. And this is another name that I'm worried about mispronouncing. Mangayamama Yaramati. And this happened just last fall, during September of 2019. So we had 2 brand new world records made just last fall in terms of female fertility, both natural conception and conception with medical assistance. That's all we have for this recording on female senescence senescence of the female reproductive system. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to let me know. And as always, happy studies.